So in that, I was leaving Ultra Music Festival one day, and I happened to see a booth for S.A.E, and it said "Professional Training for Your Future." And I'll never forget stepping back and looking at the festival as a whole and saying to myself, like, this is something's going on here. I want to be a part of this. And lo and behold, if I had known the journey that that was going to begin, I never would have believed it. So in that, found my way to audio engineering school, had just amazing parents who believed in me, and rather than send me to school in Miami, they honored me and sent me to school in Europe. And it was there in Europe, actually in Amsterdam, where I was exposed to a culture shock, if you will. You know, for the first time in my life, I was a minority. And also at the same time, I realized that the history in Amsterdam and the history of Europe in general was so profound to actually walk those streets and see these buildings. It really shifted my awareness that I was a part of something much bigger than I ever imagined. During that time, I had followed an artist that I was very passionate about at the time to a venue in London known as Fabric. And I knew that he was a resident DJ there, and I wanted to hear his music in that environment. And so I started to write them and just let them know, hey, I'm in school. I want to come there and just learn more about acoustics and club design and what you all do. At that time, I didn't know that Fabric was the #1 venue in the world for electronic music. And lo and behold, after about 3 months of writing them nonstop and getting no response, literally 2 weeks before I'm going, I get this response: be at the back door at 4 o'clock and we'll show you around. And to this day, I am eternally grateful to David Perry. What him and the crew did back then is just profound. And for those of you that might have been blessed to be there for that experience of Fabric then, it was a very unique time. So lo and behold, here I am, got an internship. Once I get there, every month for about 6 to 7 months, I'm flying to London, surrounded by the top acts in electronic music, from DJ Craze to Sasha and Digweed to James Lavelle, Leo and Bushwaka, Adam Freeland. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. And so to sit there and watch the art form being executed by these professionals, you could see very easily who was playing it safe and who was really pushing boundaries. And again, that had a profound impact on my awareness and how I view music and sound. For those of you that don't know about Fabric, there's some links below for you to check out the history of it and exactly what it entails. And what it entails is a greater understanding of sound and acoustics and its profound impact on our central nervous system. And over the years after school, came back to Florida, was blessed to start my own company with some friends, and spent the next 4 to 5 years, you know, pursuing the industry, audio-visual, DJing, producing music, doing all sorts of wild stuff. We did audio-visual events for Ocean Drive, Moms Under the Palms, NFL, all sorts of really cool stuff. But in that growing phase, coming back to America, there was always this background of what Europe was expressing through the music. And to come back to America and try to express that same thing, it was like people just didn't get, on a larger scale, people didn't really understand what electronic music entails. And I'd like to share a little perspective on that before I get into the course here. So fundamentally what we learn over the years, I began studying yoga pretty heavily and meditation, and you start to notice that in meditation, some of the cultures use sound, instruments such as gongs and chimes and bowls and things of this nature. And at first, it's a very superficial thing. We have these feelings and these sensations. But the more I began to study for myself, learn about music, and begin to apply this knowledge to music, I began to learn about scientific principles such as brainwave entrainment. In other words, every human being on the planet, when exposed to a certain frequency or a certain sound for an extended period of time, that sound will actually change the dominant brainwave frequency of any person across the planet. And we also have what's known as a pentatonic scale within music, and it's actually the most universally recognized scale within music. You can go to any culture across the planet, play these 5 notes in this sequence, and every culture will be able to dance, sing, relate, and emotionally connect with that style, with that scale. To me, this was profound. You know, here we have all these different languages on the world, all these different cultures, all this vast history within each culture. Yet from every tribal culture to every modern civilization, music has been an integrated faculty of the human experience, both in ceremony and in celebration. In fact, some of the oldest artifacts that we find on the planet are actually musical instruments, one of them being a bone flute. So in that, being the type of mindset that I am, I knew right away, like, whoa, this is much bigger than I ever imagined, and I want to be a part of this. Over the years of practicing yoga, traveling, pursuing the industry over the old paradigm, trying to follow the old patterns, I was coming up against this wall. And for me, what it was, that wall became very obvious when I moved to New Orleans. When I moved to New Orleans, I was surrounded by such talented musicians, such raw talent, not technical talent. It was a totally different type of relationship with sound and music. And in that, I was very inspired as a producer to learn how to play an instrument. So I began to really force myself to learn how to play the guitar, learn how to play the piano, learn my major and minor scales so that I could actually communicate with these very advanced musicians what it is that I was hearing, channeling through. At the same time, that was the first time I ever got to jam in a group, actually partake in what a band is. And there's no real words for what happened for myself, but I began to have these experiences. These were very similar experiences I had had in the past during my partying years. And I began to recognize that not all people necessarily have these same experiences. But something was happening, and for me, it was very healing. In other words, there were layers of myself being removed, shame, guilt, embarrassment, also aspects of thinking that you have a grasp on what's really happening here in life. And this humbleness began to evolve out of playing with others and connecting with them through music and sound.